Hey everyone! Ready to dive deep into the world of Havoc? Released on April 25, 2025, this film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're uncovering every thrilling detail. If you enjoy this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us grow. And for more incredible movie explorations and hidden gems, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's unravel the magic behind this cinematic masterpiece. When Havoc roared onto Netflix screens on April 25, 2025, it wasn't just another action thriller. It was a wake-up call to anyone who thought the genre had run out of new things to say. Directed by Gareth Evans, the visionary mind behind the Raid films, Havoc brought with it a storm of rain, blood, betrayal, and redemption, all stitched together by the bruising, magnetic presence of Tom Hardy. From its very first frame, Havoc signaled that it wasn't here to play by the rules. It was here to tear them up, set them on fire, and fight its way through the ashes. Set against the backdrop of a nameless, decaying city where corruption festers in the gutters and hope is little more than an illusion, the film plunges viewers into a relentless downward spiral. It's a world where the line between the law and lawlessness has all but disappeared, and survival depends not on your badge or your bravado, but on your ability to endure. And at the heart of this chaotic maelstrom is Detective Walker, played with soul-shattering intensity by Tom Hardy. A man too battered to still be called a hero, yet too stubborn to become a villain. Hardy doesn't just play Walker, he embodies him, dragging the audience through every broken bone, every moral compromise, and every desperate gasp for redemption. What makes Havoc extraordinary isn't just the explosive action or the intricate choreography of its fight scenes, though those elements are, without question, some of the most visceral and bone-rattling sequences ever captured on film. What elevates this story is its emotional core, the raw, beating heart that pounds louder than any gunfire. Beneath the violence lies a meditation on guilt, resilience, and the quiet, devastating cost of survival in a system designed to crush the soul. Gareth Evans crafts each scene like a sculptor chipping away at a block of granite, revealing hidden veins of sorrow and humanity beneath the hard, cracked surface. The plot of Havoc unravels with the irresistible pull of a noir nightmare. After a drug deal collapses into a bloodbath, the city threatens to implode. In the chaos, Charlie Beaumont, the estranged son of mayoral candidate Lawrence Beaumont, goes missing, dragging his powerful family's secrets into the sores of the criminal underworld. Walker is assigned the task of retrieving Charlie and, in the process, containing a scandal that could shake the very foundations of the city's already fractured political machine. But nothing is ever simple in a world built on deception and rot. The deeper Walker goes, the more he discovers a festering web of betrayal that spans not just the criminal syndicates, but the very institutions meant to uphold justice. Forrest Whitaker lends a searing gravity to Lawrence Beaumont, painting him not as a mustache-twirling villain, but as a man whose ambition has quietly, insidiously devoured any remnants of his conscience. Every glance, every measured word Whitaker delivers seems soaked in unseen compromises, the heavy price of power paid in silence and blood. Justin Cornwell steps into the role of Charlie Beaumont with a delicate mix of vulnerability and rage, portraying a young man shackled by the sins of a world he never chose yet cannot escape. Amid the ruins of loyalty and trust, the film introduces MIA, portrayed by Cullen Sepulveda, whose relationship with Charlie and her own desperate circumstances add a layer of heartbreaking urgency to the narrative. Jessie Mei's performance as Ellie, the rookie cop thrust into this cesspool of violence, offers a bittersweet glimpse of what might have been had hope stood a fighting chance. Her character's idealism flickers like a candle in the storm, a haunting reminder that not everyone has been fully consumed by the darkness. The brilliance of Havoc lies not in its ability to shock with violence, but in how it weaponizes violence to reveal character. Each punch, each gunshot, each brutal takedown tells a story, not just of survival, but of desperation, defiance, and, in fleeting, painful moments, of hope. Evans choreographs the action with a brutal ballet's precision, each movement heavy with stakes and consequences. There's no clean, superheroic violence here. Every fight is ugly, exhausting, and deeply personal. Hardy's performance through these sequences is staggering, not just physically but emotionally, as every blow he receives seems to chip away at his soul. Timothy Olyphant's Vincent, the crooked narcotics officer who serves as a twisted mirror to Walker's own fractured morality, brings a slick, unsettling charm to the chaos. His smirking cruelty and simmering menace escalate the tension to unbearable heights. Luis Guzman's portrayal of Raúl, the morally ambiguous uncle of MIA, adds yet another shade of complexity to this grey landscape, where every choice feels like a negotiation with the devil. Yo Yan Yan and Sunny Pang's characters from the city's triad underworld carve their own path of vengeance through the story, embodying forces of nature that Walker must navigate or be swallowed by. Visually, Havoc is an unrelenting sensory experience. The rain is almost constant, turning the city into a drenched, decaying jungle of broken glass and neon reflections. Every street corner, every abandoned warehouse pulses with atmosphere. The cinematography, drenched in sickly greens and cold blues, amplifies the sense of suffocation, of a world where the walls are closing in and there's nowhere left to run. The camera never flinches, following Walker into the narrowest hallways, the bloodiest brawls, the most claustrophobic nightmares. It's not just that you watch the action. You feel trapped inside it, unable to look away. The storytelling rhythm is masterful, building tension in long, breathless stretches before exploding into bursts of savage action. But Gareth Evans doesn't just rely on adrenaline to carry the audience. He laces the narrative with quieter, devastating moments that linger long after the fight's end. A fleeting smile, a crumpled photograph, a whispered apology in the dark. These small human details remind us that the stakes aren't measured in territory or drugs, but in lives broken and lost. As the layers of betrayal peel back, the film's thematic undercurrents become impossible to ignore. Havoc isn't just a crime story, it's a commentary on the rot that seeps into institutions when ambition outstrips integrity, when survival becomes more valuable than honor. It's about how systems of power feed off the vulnerable, and how redemption, when it comes at all, demands a terrible price. In the end, Walker's journey is less about saving Charlie or uncovering a conspiracy, and more about salvaging the last piece of his own shattered humanity. The final act of Havoc hits with the force of a wrecking ball. Alliances shatter, long-buried truths claw their way into the light, and the city's fragile order disintegrates into a storm of retribution and despair. In the climactic showdown, Walker must choose not between victory and defeat, but between becoming the monster he has fought so long against or finding a way to endure without losing himself entirely. The resolution is neither clean nor comforting. It's raw, painful, and absolutely earned. When the dust settles and Walker's battered silhouette disappears into the rain, it leaves an ache behind, a testament to a story that refuses to offer easy answers. That ache is part of why Havoc became more than just another action film. It tapped into something deeper, something raw and real in the audience's collective consciousness. Viewers didn't just watch Walker's battle. They felt it. They recognized the slow, grinding erosion of hope, the brutal cost of endurance, the fleeting, precious flashes of connection and mercy in a world gone mad. In the weeks and months after its release, Havoc ignited conversations not just about its breathtaking action sequences, but about its haunting portrayal of human resilience. It captured the imagination of audiences around the world, spawning countless analyses, fan theories, and critical essays. Some called it the die-hard of a new generation. Others compared it to modern classics like Children of Men in its unflinching portrayal of a broken world clinging to fragments of beauty. But perhaps Havoc's greatest achievement is how it made the audience feel. Not invincible, not exhilarated, but deeply, painfully alive. Tom Hardy's performance was hailed as one of the finest of his career, a masterclass in conveying strength and vulnerability without ever tipping into melodrama. Gareth Evans solidified his place as one of the most daring directors of his generation, proving that he could take the visceral energy of martial arts cinema and fuse it with the emotional weight of prestige drama. And Netflix, in releasing Havoc as a global event, demonstrated once again how the platform could amplify bold, uncompromising storytelling to audiences hungry for something more than safe, sanitized blockbusters. Ultimately, Havoc isn't a movie you simply watch. It's a movie you survive. It's a brutal, beautiful, emotionally harrowing experience that grabs you by the throat and doesn't let go until long after the final credits have rolled. It reminds us that even in the darkest, most broken places, the fight for humanity, no matter how battered or blooded, still matters. And that makes Havoc not just a great film, but an essential one. The city is soaked. Rain hammers the pavement in a relentless torrent, washing away nothing, cleansing nothing. In this place, filth runs too deep, and no storm is strong enough to scour it clean. The opening shots of Havoc pull us straight into the thick of it. A cold, grey labyrinth of crumbling buildings, flickering neon, and shadows that seem to whisper of unseen dangers. In the heart of it all, Detective Walker moves like a ghost, a battered relic of a time when men still believed they could make a difference. His face is a road map of old wounds, his eyes a study in controlled chaos. There's a job to do, but somewhere deep inside, he already knows this night will cost him more than he can afford. The call comes in like a scream across a bad connection. A drug deal gone wrong in the industrial quarter. Walker and his reluctant partner, the rookie cop Ellie, race through the rain-slick streets. They find the scene already drowned in blood, bodies slumped in contorted heaps, evidence scattered like confetti at a funeral. The air is thick with cordite and desperation. Walker scans the scene with weary efficiency, piecing together the story. The deal wasn't just a bust. It was an ambush. And the people responsible aren't amateurs. This was sanctioned chaos, a message written in blood. Before they can even process the aftermath, another revelation hits. Charlie Beaumont, son of the city's most powerful political figure, has gone missing. His connection to the drug world had been whispered about in back alleys for months, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Now, with Charlie's disappearance, the whispers become shouts. Lawrence Beaumont, masterfully played by Forrest Whitaker, sits in his towering office above the chaos, making desperate calls to shadowy contacts. His campaign for mayor teeters on the edge of ruin. He can't afford a scandal. He can't afford to lose. His cold, measured voice orders immediate containment. Find Charlie. Find him before the wolves start to circle. Walker is handed the task not because he's the best, he isn't anymore, but because he's expendable. A man with nothing left to lose is the perfect tool for a dirty job. He dives into the city's underbelly, a warren of informants, lowlifes, and broken souls. Along the way, he crosses paths with Raoul, played by Luis Guzman, an old acquaintance who straddles the line between criminal and survivor. Raoul doesn't give information freely. Nothing in this world is free, but Walker's fists and Raoul's survival instincts quickly reach an agreement. Charlie was last seen with MIA, a young woman whose connections to the underworld are as complicated as they are dangerous. Finding MIA isn't easy. Walker and Ellie chase ghosts through the ruins of the city. Abandoned clubs, crumbling housing blocks, backroom gambling dens where life is cheap and death is cheaper. Each step forward feels like 2 steps into quicksand. Tensions between Walker and Ellie flare. She still believes in rules, in protocols, in a world where justice is more than a punchline. Walker lost that faith long ago. But buried beneath his cynicism, there's something in her stubborn idealism that gnaws at him, a reminder of who he used to be. Meanwhile, shadows gather around them. Timothy Oliphant's Vincent, a narcotics officer with a predatory grin, starts circling Walker's investigation like a shark. Vincent wears the badge, but he plays by his own set of rules, a dangerous, shifting game of alliances and betrayals. His presence isn't just a threat, it's a warning. Walker is treading on ground soaked with too many secrets. A break finally comes when Raoul points Walker to an underground club run by the Triads, a claustrophobic maze of sweat, music, and menace. Inside, Walker finds MIA, battered but defiant, cornered by men who see her as disposable. The ensuing fight is brutal, messy, and painfully real. There are no stylish moves here, no slick choreography. Walker fights like a man trying not to drown, each punch a desperate gasp for air. When the dust settles, he pulls MIA from the wreckage, both of them bleeding and barely standing. Mia's story spills out in broken pieces. Charlie had stumbled into something far bigger than a drug deal gone wrong. He had seen things he wasn't supposed to see, things that tied the city's most powerful men to the criminal empires they pretended to condemn. And now, everyone wants him silenced. MIA doesn't know where he is, but she knows who might. Raoul's estranged brother, a mid-level enforcer with ties to both the Triads and Vincent's corrupt network. A meeting is arranged, fraught with danger, the tension wound so tight it could snap at any second. As Walker, Ellie, and MIA move through the city's darkest corners, the walls close in. Ambushes become constant. Information leaks out faster than they can contain it. Someone high up wants them dead, and they're not subtle about it. One particularly harrowing chase through the skeletal remains of an old shopping mall turns into a desperate, bone-breaking battle for survival. It's a stunning sequence where the camera follows Walker with unflinching intimacy, dragging the viewer through collapsing walls, narrow stairwells, and blood-slick corridors. Every hit hurts. Every escape feels like a miracle. Through it all, Walker and Ellie's uneasy alliance deepens. She sees the man he once was, buried beneath layers of pain and disillusionment. He sees in her a flicker of the hope he lost somewhere along the way. Their bond becomes a lifeline, fragile and fraying, but vital. Meanwhile, Lawrence Beaumont grows increasingly desperate. His carefully curated image of moral superiority crumbles behind closed doors. Scenes flash between Walker's desperate pursuit and Lawrence's backroom meetings, deals brokered in shadows, threats whispered over expensive whiskey. Forrest Whitaker plays these moments with devastating subtlety, revealing a man at war with himself, a man who crossed a line long ago and now cannot find his way back. The tipping point comes when Walker and Ellie corner Raoul's brother in a derelict high-rise. The meeting turns violent almost immediately, a claustrophobic firefight that leaves bodies littered across the floor. In the aftermath, Walker extracts a single, chilling piece of information. Charlie is being held in a fortified compound outside the city, guarded by Vincent's most ruthless enforcers. Rescuing him will mean storming the gates of hell. But before they can move, betrayal strikes from within. Someone close to them, a face they trusted, sells them out. Walker barely escapes a brutal ambush, dragging a wounded MIA to safety. Ellie is captured, her idealism turned against her in the cruelest way. Vincent's smirking face looms large as he tightens his grip on the situation, manipulating events to ensure that Charlie, and all the damning secrets he carries, never see the light of day. Wounded, exhausted, and more alone than ever, Walker faces a grim choice. The system he swore to uphold has turned against him. The allies he relied on are dead, missing, or compromised. The enemy is closing in. But somewhere beneath the bruises and the scars, the fire still burns. He made a promise, to MIA, to Ellie, to himself, that he wouldn't walk away, not this time. The storm refuses to let up. The city drowns in a constant downpour as Walker, battered but unbroken, gathers his strength for one final push. Every breath he takes feels heavier, like the weight of the whole rotting world is pressing down on him, daring him to quit. But if there's one thing Havoc makes clear, it's that a man who's already lost everything is the most dangerous man of all. Walker sharpens his focus, plans his assault with the cold precision of someone who knows there's no going back. Charlie's life, and maybe a sliver of his own soul, hangs in the balance. Armed with nothing but raw determination, a few scavenged weapons, and the memory of every betrayal he's endured, Walker heads for the compound. The place is a fortress, towering concrete walls wrapped in rusted wire, guards bristling with firepower, floodlights cutting through the sheets of rain like angry searchlights. It's not just a stronghold, it's a tomb, a place where secrets are buried permanently. But Walker doesn't hesitate. He breaches the perimeter with brutal efficiency, dispatching sentries in brutal, close-quarters fights that feel so real you can almost taste the blood in the air. Every crack of gunfire, every grunt of exertion, is captured with heart-pounding intensity. It's a dance with death, and Walker leads without missing a beat. Inside, the compound is a labyrinth of fear. Ellie is being held in a makeshift cell, her spirit bruised but unbroken. It's a gut-wrenching scene as Walker fights his way to her, carving a bloody path through Vincent's men. Their reunion is wordless, charged with raw emotion. Two soldiers in a war no one else even knows is raging. Ellie, despite everything, still carries the stubborn fire of belief in justice, and it reignites something in Walker, something vital. They aren't just trying to save Charlie anymore. They're fighting for something bigger, the slim, stubborn hope that the city can still be saved, even if it's just a tiny corner of it. Together, they push deeper, every step forward revealing new horrors. They find evidence of the full scope of corruption. Files, recordings, transaction lists tying the city's elite to the drug syndicates, the human trafficking rings, the violence hidden behind layers of bureaucracy and plausible deniability. Charlie wasn't just a spoiled rich kid in over his head. He stumbled upon the blueprint of the city's rot. His life is the price for knowing too much. But Charlie isn't the only prisoner here. In one of the compound's lower levels, Walker and Ellie discover rooms full of people. Forgotten souls, victims of the city's silent war against itself. Some are too broken to be saved. Others, like MIA, cling to the smallest flickers of hope. It's a devastating moment, a reminder that the villains of Havoc aren't cartoonish monsters. They're ordinary men in expensive suits and shiny shoes, men who chose greed and survival over humanity. The final confrontation builds with almost unbearable tension. Walker and Ellie reach the central chamber, where Vincent awaits them like a smug devil perched on a throne of ash. Charlie, bruised and barely conscious, is shackled nearby. Vincent tries to bargain, to offer Walker a way out. Money, protection, a future. It's a tantalizing offer, a moment where everything could pivot. But Walker doesn't waver. Not this time. The fight that follows is brutal, desperate, and agonizingly real. Vincent fights dirty, using every trick, every bit of vicious cunning at his disposal. It's not a cinematic showdown with stylish flourishes. It's two broken men tearing each other apart, fighting for their very souls. When Walker finally slams Vincent to the ground, battered and barely breathing, it isn't a triumphant victory. It's a hollow, painful necessity. Ellie frees Charlie, and together they drag the shattered remnants of their mission out into the rain. But Havoc isn't interested in clean endings. As sirens wail in the distance, and Walker collapses against the cold concrete, they realize the war isn't over. Taking down Vincent was just cutting off one head of the Hydra. The real monsters are still out there, still smiling for the cameras, still shaking hands and making deals under the bright lights of the city hall. The movie shifts gears in its final stretch, showing the aftermath with a kind of quiet, devastating honesty. Charlie's testimony, combined with the evidence Walker and Ellie recovered, ignites a firestorm. The media descends, the public outrage explodes, and Lawrence Beaumont's empire begins to crumble. Watching Forrest Whitaker's portrayal of Beaumont unravel is mesmerizing. A man watching everything he built rot away from the inside out, realizing too late that power bought with blood and betrayal was never real power at all. But justice, if you can call it that, comes at a cost. Walker, burned by the very system he fought to defend, becomes a pariah. The brass needs a scapegoat, and Walker fits the bill perfectly. He's suspended indefinitely, stripped of his badge, his name dragged through the mud. The final shots of Walker packing up his desk are haunting. There's no fanfare, no teary goodbyes. Just a man walking away from the ruins of everything he believed in, carrying nothing but the weight of his choices. Ellie, though, stands tall. She chooses to stay, to fight from within the system, to carry the torch that Walker can no longer bear. Their final exchange is quiet, loaded with unspoken respect and regret. She thanks him, not for saving her life, but for reminding her why the fight matters. He just nods, a flicker of something almost like peace crossing his battered features. Charlie, forever changed, disappears into anonymity. His name, once a ticket to power and privilege, becomes a curse. But there's hope in his story too. A slim chance that survival might mean more than just living, that maybe redemption is possible even after witnessing the very worst humanity has to offer. As Havoc draws to its close, the camera pulls back, rising over the rain-slick streets, the flickering lights, the endless maze of broken dreams. The city breathes on, indifferent to the struggles of the few who tried to change it. It's a sobering ending, but not a hopeless one. Because even amidst the wreckage, even in the ruins, the fight continues. The film leaves us hollowed out and breathless, a raw nerve exposed to the cold air. It's not just an action thriller. It's a grim, unflinching portrait of a world where survival is a rebellion and hope is an act of defiance. Every twist, every brutal fight, Every gut-wrenching loss feels earned because Havoc never once flinches from the truth that sometimes the greatest victories are the ones no one will ever see. And in that truth, it carves out a kind of tragic beauty that lingers long after the credits roll. In the heart of Havoc, beneath the grime and blood and endless rain, it's the characters who breathe life into the chaos, grounding the violence in a raw, human struggle that resonates long after the screen goes dark. At the center of it all stands Walker, played with bruised, haunted brilliance by Tom Hardy. From the very first frame, Walker isn't just a man. He's a battered soul carrying the invisible weight of every bad choice he ever made. The brilliance of Hardy's performance is how little he needs to say. Every twitch of his jaw, every reluctant glance, every heavy breath paints a portrait of a man trapped in a life that's eaten away at him from the inside. Walker isn't looking for redemption when we meet him. He's just trying to survive one more day without drowning. But the case, the missing boy, the conspiracy, it drags something back to the surface, something Walker thought he'd long since buried. A flicker of hope, a stubborn refusal to let the world rot without a fight. Walker's journey through Havoc is a descent and a rebirth. At first, he moves through the city like a ghost, detached, brutal, unflinching. But with every bloody battle, every life he saves, every truth he uncovers, pieces of his humanity start to stitch themselves back together. His bond with Ellie is a crucial turning point, not in some cliched, forced way, but in the subtle, powerful realization that he's not alone. Hardy infuses Walker with a vulnerability that never undercuts his toughness. Instead, it deepens it, making every blow he absorbs, every desperate choice he makes, feel like a sacrifice offered up in defiance of a world that wants him broken. As Havoc unfolds in its relentless rhythm of brutality and survival, it becomes clear that beneath the surface chaos lies an intricate web of hidden details and carefully placed nods, each enriching the experience for those willing to look beyond the obvious. Gareth Evans doesn't just tell a story, he weaves a living, breathing world where every crack in the sidewalk, every flickering neon sign, every broken mirror holds a deeper meaning, a whispered truth for those sharp enough to catch it. Early in the film, as Walker makes his way through the derelict streets, a tattered poster flutters against a rain-soaked brick wall, barely noticeable in the background. It's an advertisement for a missing boxer, a faded nod to the Raid 2, where a character's similar downfall mirrored Walker's own battered journey. It's not just a visual Easter egg, it's a thematic one, a subtle reminder that fighters in Evans' worlds are often doomed not by their enemies, but by the battles they carry within themselves. The architecture of the city itself is riddled with symbolism. The looming skyscrapers, cracked and weather-worn yet still defiantly scraping at the sky, mirror the character's own battered perseverance. In one breathtaking shot, Walker stands on a rooftop, framed against a broken neon sign that once spelled hope, now missing the E, leaving only HOP flickering in the storm. It's a fleeting, almost subliminal image, but its message lingers. Hope is fragile, often incomplete, but still stubbornly alive. One of the most clever pieces of foreshadowing comes during Walker's first bloody encounter in the tenement corridors. As he dispatches his attackers with raw, bone-crunching efficiency, a cracked mirror briefly catches his reflection, not as one man, but as two distorted figures. It's a brilliant visual hint at the duality within him, the conflict between the broken enforcer and the reluctant protector he's becoming. Later, when Walker faces Vincent in a similarly claustrophobic space, the mirror motif returns. But this time, the reflection shows a single figure, steady and whole, signaling the internal battle has been resolved. Throughout the film, graffiti sprawled across the city's underbelly serves as a secret language for those who pay attention. Phrases like "trust no shadow" and "ashes feed the flowers" scroll the walls, prophetic whispers of the betrayals and rebirths to come. In one alley where Walker barely escapes an ambush, a mural of a phoenix, its wings blackened and battered, looms overhead, a harbinger of the painful transformation awaiting him. These aren't random set dressings. They are breadcrumbs, guiding attentive viewers through the emotional labyrinth beneath the physical one. The names chosen for the characters themselves carry hidden weight. Vincent, derived from the Latin vincer, meaning to conquer, embodies his ruthless need to dominate at any cost. Ellie, short for Eleanor, meaning light, becomes the moral illumination cutting through the city's darkness. Even the film's title, Havoc, isn't just a nod to the violence. It echoes a line from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, "Cry havoc, and let slip the dogs of war," perfectly encapsulating the unleashed fury and consequences that ripple from the film's inciting events. One of the most ingenious Easter eggs comes during a pivotal sequence where Walker and Ellie take refuge in an abandoned movie theater. As they patch themselves up under the flickering glow of a busted projector, an old film reel spins forgotten in the background. If you squint, you can just make out the film's title, The Long Goodbye, a 1973 noir classic about a morally compromised man unraveling a mystery bigger than himself. It's a subtle but brilliant wink to Havoc's own noir soul, a signal that the story unfolding before us is part of a larger cinematic lineage of lonely men against corrupt worlds. Costume design hides its own quiet secrets. Walker's jacket, heavy and utilitarian, is stitched with barely noticeable patches and repairs, signs that he's been piecing himself back together long before the events of the film. In contrast, Beaumont's suits are immaculate, almost inhumanly pristine, symbolizing how the rot he represents is carefully hidden under layers of polish and wealth. Every bloodstain on Walker's clothes feels earned, every stitch a testament to survival. It's a visual language that speaks volumes without a word being uttered. Foreshadowing is intricately layered into dialogue as well. Early on, Vincent tells a henchman, "The city's just a river, and all you gotta do is steer the current." Later, as the story descends into chaos and alliances collapse, the line reappears, bitter and broken, spoken by Ellie as she confronts the realization that no one can truly control the flow of corruption. It consumes everything in its path. This thematic callback deepens the tragedy, showing how ideals are warped and repurposed by the world's darker forces. And then there are the Bling-Candule Missit cameos. Several of Gareth Evans' longtime collaborators appear as minor gang leaders and crooked cops, blending seamlessly into the grim tapestry. It's a hidden reward for die-hard fans, a reminder that Havoc is part of a larger, living conversation within Evans' body of work. The fight choreography, so visceral and raw, also hides tributes for the keen-eyed. Certain moves and sequences subtly echo classic action scenes from genre-defining films. There's a brutal elevator fight that mirrors a famous scene in Oldboy, but twisted with Havoc's signature grim realism. These aren't rip-offs, they're love letters, reinterpreted through Evans' gritty lens to honor the lineage of hard-hitting cinema. Even the soundtrack hums with hidden layers. Listen closely during key moments, and you'll notice that the background score incorporates distorted city sounds. Sirens, muffled shouting, subway clatters, woven into the musical fabric, blurring the line between diegetic noise and emotional score. It's an auditory reminder that the city itself is always present, always pressing in, a relentless character in its own right. One of the film's most touching Easter eggs arrives near the end, during the brief calm before the final storm. Walker passes a small shop window, cracked and dirty, where a mechanical toy soldier marches endlessly in place. It's easy to miss, but it speaks volumes, a symbol of Walker himself, endlessly soldiering forward, broken but unstoppable, driven by a purpose even he can't fully articulate. It's a quiet, almost poetic moment of self-recognition tucked into the margins of a world that rarely allows for reflection. Perhaps the most resonant hidden element of Havoc lies in its cyclical structure. The film begins with Walker limping down an alley, bleeding and broken, and it ends with him doing the same. But this time, there's a difference. A small, almost imperceptible lift to his posture, a set to his jaw that wasn't there before. It's the film's final, unspoken revelation. Survival isn't about avoiding the fight or escaping unscathed. It's about enduring, choosing to get up and move forward even when the world does everything it can to grind you down. That simple, stubborn act of survival is its own kind of victory. Every one of these hidden touches, from the graffiti to the mirror motifs, from the whispered callbacks to the buried cultural references, weaves Havoc into something greater than the sum of its parts. They reward the attentive, the curious, the viewers willing to lean in a little closer and listen to what the film is really saying beneath the screams and the gunfire. In Gareth Evans' world, chaos reigns, but hidden beneath the blood and ruin are messages of resilience, humanity, and the indomitable will to rise again. And it's in uncovering these buried treasures that Havoc truly reveals its soul. Behind the raw ferocity and relentless momentum of Havoc lies a creation story just as chaotic, strange, and compelling as the film itself. While the movie barrels across the screen with breathtaking confidence, its journey to existence was anything but straightforward. Every frame carries the fingerprints of countless challenges, bold creative gambles, and a few near disasters that somehow alchemized into one of the most riveting cinematic experiences of the year. The story begins long before a single scene was shot. Gareth Evans, known for redefining modern action with the Raid films, spent years wrestling with the idea of Havoc. Initially envisioned as a gritty throwback to 1970s crime dramas, Evans found himself grappling with the genre's legacy. He didn't want to simply homage the classics. He wanted to inject a new kind of brutality, something raw, almost claustrophobic, yet strangely human. The challenge wasn't just building the world. It was tearing down expectations and starting fresh. For months, Evans wandered the rain-slick streets of several cities, taking photographs, recording street sounds, breathing in the atmosphere, all to build an authentic urban jungle that would become Havoc's uncredited, ever-present character. Then there was the small matter of casting. Tom Hardy, already legendary for his complete physical and emotional immersion into roles, signed on early, but not without setting a tone that would permeate the entire production. Hardy insisted on performing nearly all of his own stunts, a decision that thrilled Evans but sent shudders through the insurance underwriters. Production meetings often became surreal balancing acts between Hardy's desire to throw himself into walls, down stairwells, and through car windows, and the producers' desperate need to keep their star in one piece. The strangest incident occurred during a particularly grueling sequence in a derelict warehouse. Hardy, mid-scene and entirely in character, took a wrong fall during a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Everyone froze, crew members dropping equipment, extras gasping. But Hardy popped back up, blood streaming from a real gash on his forehead, and growled, "Keep rolling." The resulting shot, a brutal close-up of Walker staggering but refusing to fall, wasn't planned. It was pure, unscripted Hardy, and Evans wisely left it untouched in the final cut. Filming Havoc's labyrinthine fight scenes brought its own brand of madness. Evans, a stickler for realism, refused to rely heavily on CGI. He wanted the fights to feel immediate, desperate, exhausting. That meant choreographing insanely complex sequences where the camera crew had to be just as nimble and fearless as the actors. One infamous tracking shot, a 4-minute unbroken take through a crumbling apartment complex, required a cameraman strapped into a modified Steadicam rig custom-built to absorb the shock of constant impacts. They affectionately nicknamed it the Punisher, because anyone who wore it could expect bruises for days. There were other strange little details that only came to light after filming wrapped. Like the fact that the set designers snuck secret maps into the graffiti-strewn walls and alleyways. Each piece of graffiti wasn't random. It subtly pointed to plot developments, character arcs, or even hinted at betrayals yet to unfold. In interviews, Evans joked that technically, if someone could decode the graffiti, they could predict the movie's major twists before they happened. No one has officially solved it yet. But perhaps the oddest production choice was Evans' insistence on shooting most of the film in chronological order, a rarity in modern filmmaking. It was a nightmare for scheduling and logistics, but Evans believed that by forcing the actors to live through the story's events in sequence, the emotional toll would naturally accumulate. And it did. Hardy reportedly became noticeably quieter and more withdrawn as filming progressed, mirroring Walker's own descent into exhaustion and grim determination. What you see on screen isn't just acting. It's the cumulative wear of months spent in grimy hallways, fake blood staining the floorboards, fists aching from endless takes. The city itself, unnamed in the movie, became a character shaped by necessity as much as design. Originally, Havoc was set to shoot entirely in Cardiff, Wales, but pandemic-related delays forced the production to pivot, patching together locations from several different cities. Abandoned industrial parks, condemned housing blocks, even a half-demolished shopping center were stitched together through clever set design and cinematography to create a single, decaying urban nightmare. If something feels disorienting about the geography of Havoc, that's entirely intentional. It's a world collapsing in on itself, without a center or clear direction, much like Walker's own journey. Not every strange story was confined to the set, either. During a break from shooting, Hardy would often disappear into the city without a security entourage, slipping into hole-in-the-wall diners or walking alleyways alone to stay in Walker's head. One particularly surreal moment involved Hardy being mistaken for a real homeless man by a local charity worker, who offered him food and shelter. Hardy, ever the method actor, reportedly accepted the sandwich with a nod and spent the next few hours observing the rhythms of the street, deepening his understanding of the marginalized world Walker inhabited. Then there's the matter of the film's brutal atmosphere, which nearly pushed several crew members to their limits. According to interviews, the production had a decompression room set up on location, complete with soft lighting, music, snacks, and even therapy dogs, to give the cast and crew a place to emotionally recover between takes. Hardy was a frequent visitor, often collapsing into a chair still in costume, laughing hollowly before quietly falling asleep for a few precious minutes. The script itself evolved constantly. Evans encouraged improvisation during fight scenes and even during key dialogue exchanges. Some of the most powerful lines in the movie weren't in the original script at all but emerged organically from the performer's immersion in the moment. When Walker mutters, "You survive by forgetting who you are," that wasn't written. It was something Hardy whispered almost to himself during a rehearsal, and Evans immediately knew it had to be in the final cut. One of the most unexpected sources of inspiration for the film's gritty tone came from a surprising place: classic samurai cinema. Evans cited films like Harakiri and The Sword of Doom as major influences, not for their swordplay, but for their existential portrayal of violence as both a physical act and a spiritual wound. That influence bleeds into every frame of Havoc. The way fights don't feel victorious, just necessary, and how survival seems less like a triumph and more like an ongoing tragedy. As for controversies, Havoc wasn't immune. Some early test screenings reportedly divided audiences with the film's sheer brutality and moral ambiguity. There were debates among producers about whether certain scenes, particularly a harrowing sequence involving child exploitation rings, should be trimmed or softened. Evans stood firm, insisting that the ugliness was essential, not for shock value, but to make Walker's quiet acts of redemption feel earned, not cheapened. Ultimately, the final cut remained uncompromising, and it's part of what gives Havoc its lingering, haunting power. Even the film's marketing carried its own hidden layers. The first teaser poster featured a dense, almost unreadable tangle of black and red lines, frustrating casual viewers but delighting hardcore fans who realized the lines, when traced carefully, formed the outline of Walker's battered face. An invitation to look closer, to embrace the chaos rather than retreat from it. And through it all, Evans and Hardy maintained a working relationship marked by a strange, intense camaraderie. Hardy called Evans the Professor of Pain, while Evans nicknamed Hardy the Human Avalanche. Their creative partnership, forged in blood, sweat, and literal tears, birthed a film that doesn't just entertain. It leaves marks, physical and emotional, on everyone who dares step into its world. In the end, Havoc's making of story mirrors the film itself. A brutal, beautiful battle against overwhelming odds, fueled by stubborn passion and an unyielding belief that sometimes, the ugliest journeys carve out the most unforgettable beauty. Every strange fact, every behind-the-scenes battle wound, becomes another thread in the tapestry of a movie that refuses to play it safe, and demands, instead, to be survived, felt, and remembered. Even in a film as relentlessly kinetic as Havoc, certain moments rise above the furious tide of action to leave deep, permanent marks on the viewer's psyche. These aren't just scenes, they're emotional detonations, carefully placed by Gareth Evans and detonated with surgical precision. Each key moment doesn't simply push the story forward. It digs into the audience's nerves, unearthing raw emotion, fear, grief, and the faint, stubborn flicker of hope. In revisiting these moments, the true soul of Havoc reveals itself, not in grand speeches or easy victories, but in battered faces, silent sacrifices, and the quiet devastation of a world devouring itself. One of the earliest and most defining moments comes not with a gunshot or a brutal brawl, but with a single look. Early in the film, after Walker's mission spirals into chaos, there's a fleeting shot of him standing in the rain, blood mixing with water, staring blankly into the darkness ahead. It's easy to miss on first viewing, but linger a moment longer, and the emotional weight crushes down. In that glance, Hardy distills the entire journey that lies ahead, Not a heroic charge, but a slog through moral decay where every step forward feels heavier than the last. It's a moment of profound foreshadowing, quietly warning that survival will come at the cost of pieces of his soul, carved away one brutal choice at a time. And then, there's the warehouse fight, already becoming the stuff of modern action legend. What makes it special isn't just the choreography, although that is jaw-dropping in its balletic violence. It's the way the scene refuses to glamorize the brutality. Walker doesn't glide through the fight. He claws, slips, scrambles. Every punch is thrown from desperation. Every slam against concrete echoes with painful finality. Midway through, there's a brutal, unbroken tracking shot where Walker, visibly limping, barely fends off a wave of attackers, the camera refusing to look away. By refusing to cut, Evans forces the audience into the same exhaustion, the same growing dread. It's not a fight you watch. It's a fight you survive alongside Walker, breathless and battered. Equally unforgettable is a quieter, far more harrowing sequence: Walker's encounter with the imprisoned children. It's a gut punch delivered with unbearable intimacy. There's no swelling music, no dramatic speeches, just a stark, silent exchange of glances between a man who's seen too much and children already broken by a system designed to chew them up. In this moment, Hardy's performance peels back the last remnants of Walker's professional detachment. The world he thought he understood, the mission he thought he could complete cleanly, collapses into something messier and infinitely more painful. For audiences, this scene is where the movie shifts from brutal crime drama to something deeper, a meditation on complicity, guilt, and the slow, impossible grind of redemption. The rooftop confrontation, midway through the second half, stands as another crystallizing moment. Walker, cornered and outgunned, faces down a corrupt police lieutenant who embodies everything rotting from within the system. What unfolds isn't a traditional action climax but a tense, morally loaded conversation where every word cuts deeper than any bullet. Hardy, blooded and shaking, radiates a terrifying kind of stillness, while his opponent oozes the easy confidence of someone who has gotten away with too much for too long. When violence finally erupts, it's sudden, ugly, and completely devoid of glamour. The rooftop doesn't host a battle of good versus evil. It hosts the desperate collapse of a system long past redemption. Viewers can almost feel the concrete underfoot cracking, not from bullets, but from the sheer weight of accumulated corruption. A thematic through-line that stitches these moments together is the idea of decay: moral, physical, societal. Evans laces the film with visual metaphors for collapse. Buildings sagging into ruin, streets that seem to buckle under invisible pressure, neon lights sputtering like dying stars. Every key scene amplifies this decay. When Walker escapes a collapsing parking structure, he doesn't emerge victorious. He staggers out, one more damaged relic crawling from the wreckage of a broken civilization. And audiences, by this point, don't crave a triumphant finale. They crave simple survival, a flicker of humanity amid the wreckage. Among the film's most haunting moments is a nearly wordless sequence late in the second act, where Walker stumbles into a church hollowed out and defaced by squatters. The altar stands smashed, stained glass windows shattered, graffiti bleeding across once sacred walls. Walker sits alone in a pew, clutching a wound, staring blankly ahead. For a full minute, nothing happens. No threats appear. No revelations unfold. And yet, it's one of the film's most powerful images. A soldier of a dead system, seeking refuge in a dead sanctuary, finding only silence. In this simple scene, Havoc lays bare its bleak heart. The idea that in a world that has forgotten mercy, salvation must be clawed from the ruins with blooded hands. Audience reactions to these moments have been electric and divided. Some hail Havoc as a blistering masterpiece of uncompromising vision, lauding Evans' refusal to sugarcoat the narrative with cheap heroics. Others find the relentless bleakness almost unbearable, accusing the film of nihilism. But even among critics, there's a consensus that these key scenes elevate the film from mere genre exercise to something closer to tragic opera, staged in alleyways and abandoned warehouses instead of marble halls. The climactic final sequence ties all these threads together with devastating precision. Walker, beaten beyond recognition, finally confronts the crime syndicate's shadowy mastermind. Yet what should feel like catharsis instead lands with hollow, aching inevitability. Victory tastes like ash. Walker, bleeding and exhausted, realizes that removing one monster changes nothing. The rot runs too deep. The city will simply birth new monsters to replace the old. In the final devastating shot, Walker disappears into the misted streets, not a hero returning home, but a ghost swallowed by the city's endless hunger. For audiences, it's a gut-wrenching end that lingers long after the credits roll. A refusal to deliver the clean resolution so many stories promise, opting instead for a brutal honesty that feels earned, if not comforting. What makes these critical moments extraordinary is how they resist traditional narrative rewards. Evans and Hardy together sculpt a world where violence isn't thrilling but exhausting, where survival costs more than it restores, and where redemption, if it comes at all, is small, bitter, and hard-won. Each impactful scene deepens this bleak but oddly beautiful vision, inviting viewers not just to watch, but to feel, to shoulder the weight alongside the characters, to stagger through the wreckage gasping for hope. In the end, it's these scenes, the rain-soaked glances, the bruised knuckles, the crumbling sanctuaries, that transform Havoc into something unforgettable. A cinematic experience that doesn't just entertain but challenges, demands, and, ultimately, leaves its audience forever marked, carrying away invisible bruises that ache long after the screen goes dark. From the very first frame of Havoc, it's clear that something extraordinary is unfolding, not just in terms of the story being told, but in the craftsmanship behind it. Gareth Evans didn't simply set out to make a gritty crime thriller. He set out to build an entire world of visceral, unrelenting authenticity, and every creative choice behind the camera feels tethered to that mission. What we see on screen is the culmination of countless daring decisions, innovative techniques, and a behind-the-scenes battle almost as fierce as the one raging through the film's streets. Evans' approach to the film's visual storytelling began with one guiding principle: immersion at all costs. To achieve this, he abandoned traditional Hollywood setups, opting instead for a nimble, almost guerrilla-style method of shooting. Camera rigs were stripped down to their bare essentials, allowing cinematographer Matt Flannery to move with the actors through narrow alleys, crumbling interiors, and rain-slicked rooftops. Often, the camera itself feels like an additional character, breathing, stumbling, panicking alongside Walker. It's a technique that demanded punishing endurance from both cast and crew, but it paid off spectacularly, pulling the audience into the chaos rather than observing it from a safe distance. One of the most ambitious achievements came in the form of the film's now legendary tracking shots. Unlike many action films that rely on quick cuts to mask stunt doubles or fake impacts, Havoc lingers, sometimes unbearably, on the full, uninterrupted brutality of its fights. These sequences required months of choreography, intense rehearsal, and an almost symbiotic relationship between Hardy, the camera operators, and the stunt team. Tom Hardy, never one to shy away from physically demanding roles, performed the vast majority of his own stunts, often enduring real injuries to maintain the film's unflinching realism. In one particularly grueling take, he reportedly dislocated a finger during a knife fight but insisted on finishing the scene before seeking medical attention, embodying the very spirit of endurance that defines his character. The use of lighting throughout Havoc is another subtle marvel. Eschewing polished studio setups, the filmmakers leaned heavily into naturalistic and available light sources. Flickering neon signs, malfunctioning street lamps, the cold, gray smear of dawn filtering through broken windows. This choice not only reinforced the decaying aesthetic of the world but also presented immense technical challenges. Scenes were sometimes shot with lighting conditions changing by the second, forcing the cinematography team to adapt on the fly, recalibrating exposures, adjusting compositions, and often embracing the imperfections as part of the film's raw texture. The result is a world that feels not only lived in but dying, every frame soaked in a kind of grimy authenticity that can't be faked. Sound design played a crucial, if often invisible, role in reinforcing the film's emotional landscape. Evans worked closely with his sound team to create an auditory environment that mirrors Walker's mental and physical deterioration. As the film progresses, the city's sounds, sirens, shouts, distant gunfire, become more distorted, more oppressive, until they seem to bleed together into a claustrophobic roar. Subtle audio tricks, like amplifying the sound of walkers breathing during fight scenes or introducing high-pitched frequencies during moments of extreme stress, place the viewer directly inside the character's crumbling psyche. It's an oral assault that, much like the visuals, refuses to offer comfort, instead dragging the audience deeper into the mire. Behind the scenes, the production faced a gauntlet of logistical nightmares, many of which threatened to derail the project entirely. Filming on location in some of the rougher districts presented real dangers, not just from the environment but from unpredictable local elements. Evans reportedly insisted on authenticity, declining to build backlot sets in favor of repurposing abandoned buildings, derelict factories, and condemned housing estates. On more than one occasion, filming had to be paused because of actual police interventions unrelated to the movie. The line between fiction and reality blurred alarmingly thin, lending the finished product an undeniable edge. One of the most inventive technical solutions arose during the climactic rooftop scenes, where high winds and treacherous surfaces made traditional safety rigs impractical. The team engineered custom lightweight harnesses that allowed Hardy to move fluidly while maintaining critical safety without cluttering the frame. These rigs were painstakingly erased in post-production, but the rawness of those scenes, the way Hardy seems genuinely at the mercy of the elements, owes much to the daring decision to shoot them practically, at significant personal risk. Perhaps the most unexpected innovation, however, came in the way the film handles exposition. Rather than relying on clunky dialogue or traditional flashbacks, Evans employed a technique he termed environmental storytelling. Key plot points and character backstories are embedded within the physical spaces, graffiti scrawled on a wall hinting at gang allegiances, newspaper clippings taped to a refrigerator revealing past tragedies, the scars on a minor character's knuckles telling volumes about the violence they've survived. Viewers are trusted to piece these clues together, creating a richer, more interactive narrative experience. It's a bold gamble in an era of spoon-fed storytelling, and it demands, and rewards, close attention. The post-production process proved no less grueling. Evans and his editing team spent months fine-tuning the pacing, walking a razor-thin line between relentlessness and emotional exhaustion. Special effects, where used, were deployed with a surgeon's restraint, mostly to erase safety equipment or subtly enhance practical stunts rather than to create the action itself. Every blood spatter, every crumbling wall, every battered body was first captured physically before being touched up digitally, preserving the film's tactile brutality. Perhaps the greatest technical triumph of Havoc is how invisible so much of the effort feels. There are no flashy CGI spectacles or grand, self-congratulatory set pieces screaming for awards recognition. Instead, every technical decision exists solely to serve the story, to deepen immersion, to blur the line between viewer and participant. It's a philosophy that echoes throughout every layer of the production. Storytelling first, spectacle second. In interviews, Hardy has spoken about how the production experience changed him, not just physically, with its bruises and fractures, but emotionally, as a creative artist. He described the shoot as one long, beautiful nightmare, a sentiment echoed by Evans, who likened the production to dragging yourself through broken glass for 6 months and loving every agonizing second of it. That devotion bleeds through every frame, infusing the film with a palpable sense of sacrifice, determination, and love for the craft. At its heart, Havoc isn't just a film about chaos and corruption. It's a monument to the resilience of creative ambition against crushing odds. The technical brilliance, the behind-the-scenes struggles, the countless quiet innovations, they all form the invisible scaffolding that holds up the raw, pulsating experience that audiences now step into. Every shaky camera move, every flicker of dying light, every ragged breath captured on the soundtrack, these aren't accidents or shortcuts. They're the product of deliberate, painstaking artistry that, like Walker himself, refuses to surrender even as the world around it falls apart. And when the final credits roll, and the battered, broken world of Havoc fades into the dark, what lingers isn't just the story. It's the knowledge that what you just witnessed was real, in a way few modern films dare to be anymore. A cinematic experience forged in blood, sweat, rain, and relentless, uncompromising passion. As Havoc unfolds, it becomes clear that beneath the film's unrelenting pace and brutal action lies a much deeper exploration of the human condition. The visceral intensity of the fight scenes, the relentless chase through darkened alleyways, and the unflinching portrayal of a world on the brink of collapse are all in service of something greater. A reflection of the decay, both personal and societal, that threatens to consume everything in its wake. Gareth Evans doesn't just want us to witness chaos. He wants us to understand it, to see it not just as a product of its environment, but as something that runs much deeper, intricately woven into the fabric of the individuals who inhabit this world. At its core, Havoc is a study of survival and the cost of it. The film explores the nature of power, how it is acquired, maintained, and ultimately exploited, and the moral compromises that come with wielding it. Throughout the film, characters are constantly making decisions that test their ethical boundaries, and the consequences of those decisions ripple outward, impacting not just their lives but the lives of those around them. Walker, our protagonist, is a man who walks the line between justice and vengeance, never fully crossing into either but constantly slipping further away from his initial sense of righteousness. His descent is portrayed as not just a personal transformation but a reflection of a system that demands sacrifice, sometimes of one's very humanity, in order to survive. But it's not just about individual struggle. Havoc paints a portrait of systemic decay, one that mirrors the moral rot within the characters themselves. The city in which the film takes place is a character in its own right. A place that was once thriving but now teeters on the edge of collapse. Its crumbling buildings, the flickering neon lights, the empty streets, each of these elements serves as a visual representation of the collapse of social order. The people in this city are not just fighting for survival in a physical sense. They are fighting against the very structures that once gave them purpose. In many ways, the city is a reflection of the people who inhabit it, broken, fractured, and barely holding on. As the film dives deeper into its plot, the symbolism becomes clearer. The streets themselves are a battleground, not just between factions but between ideas, ideologies, and the struggle for meaning. Each corner of the city represents a different layer of human experience: abandonment, hope, desperation, and, ultimately, a kind of resigned acceptance. The physical spaces within the film become an extension of the characters' inner lives, with crumbling walls symbolizing fractured identities, dark alleyways representing moral ambiguity, and empty spaces reflecting the emptiness that many of these individuals feel inside. The theme of corruption is pervasive throughout Havoc, not just in terms of the criminal organizations that run the city but in how it seeps into every aspect of daily life. It's a slow burn, this corruption, taking root in the hearts of those who believe they are fighting for a better world but end up perpetuating the same cycle of violence. This is most apparent in Walker's journey, as he starts as a man determined to right wrongs but slowly becomes entangled in the very system he once sought to dismantle. His character arc is a direct commentary on the dangers of becoming too entrenched in the world you're fighting against. The film warns of the ease with which ideals can be co-opted, twisted, and corrupted when you're too close to the fire. This corruption is also reflected in the symbolic use of color throughout the film. The muted, desaturated tones of the cityscape are in sharp contrast to the occasional bursts of vivid color, whether it's the neon lights of a seedy bar or the flash of a gunshot in the dark. These moments of brightness serve as symbols of fleeting hope, emotions or ideals that flicker and then disappear just as quickly as they arrive. The dissonance between these bursts of color and the otherwise bleak environment reinforces the idea that hope is a fragile thing in this world, something that must be fought for but ultimately remains elusive for most. Another critical theme explored in Havoc is the cycle of violence. The film doesn't shy away from showing the brutal reality of life in the criminal underworld, where every action seems to invite a retaliatory strike. Walker's journey is a direct reflection of this cycle. He tries to break free from it, but the world keeps pulling him back in. Violence begets violence, and no matter how hard he fights to stop it, the world around him continues to push him toward its inevitable conclusion. This cyclical nature of violence is woven into the very fabric of the narrative, making it not just a plot device but a larger commentary on the futility of trying to escape it. As Walker's story progresses, we see the toll that this endless cycle takes on his psyche. His internal conflict becomes as intense as the external battles he faces, and his struggle to retain his humanity becomes more difficult with each passing moment. This speaks to a broader societal issue: the way systems of power and control condition individuals to accept violence as a means of survival. The film doesn't offer easy answers or redemption for its characters. Instead, it suggests that once the cycle begins, it's almost impossible to break free. One of the most fascinating aspects of Havoc is its critique of masculinity. The film challenges traditional notions of strength and power, particularly through the lens of Walker's character. Early in the film, Walker is portrayed as a man of action, physically imposing, emotionally detached, and seemingly invulnerable. But as the film progresses, we begin to see cracks in this facade. His physical prowess, while impressive, is ultimately hollow if it's not paired with emotional intelligence or moral clarity. The movie forces the audience to question what it means to be strong in a world where brute force is often the only language understood. Walker's emotional journey, his struggle with his own vulnerability, becomes a powerful counterpoint to the hyper-masculine ideal that the film initially presents. In this way, Havoc challenges traditional gender norms, suggesting that true strength lies not in violence, but in the ability to confront and overcome one's internal demons. On a broader societal level, Havoc offers a scathing commentary on inequality and the ways in which systems of power perpetuate cycles of suffering. The film's setting, a city divided by wealth, corruption, and crime, mirrors real-world issues of economic disparity and social injustice. The divide between the haves and the have-nots is made clear through the film's set design and cinematography, with the stark contrast between the luxurious, heavily guarded corporate skyscrapers and the dilapidated slums where the marginalized struggle to survive. This division serves as a visual metaphor for the ways in which power structures prioritize their own preservation at the expense of those most in need. Havoc doesn't shy away from highlighting the harsh realities of life for the oppressed, but it also suggests that the system itself is in a state of collapse, something that's unsustainable and bound to implode. The portrayal of Walker's struggle with his own morality also mirrors the broader conflict between individual responsibility and collective corruption. Can one person, no matter how determined, truly change the world around them? Or are they doomed to become part of the system they're fighting against? In the end, the film leaves this question open, allowing the audience to interpret Walker's fate as a reflection of their own views on power, corruption, and redemption. In Havoc, symbolism is not just a decorative element. It's integral to the film's storytelling. Every broken window, every half-destroyed building, every fleeting moment of color, all work together to reinforce the deeper themes of decay, survival, and the moral compromises required to navigate a world teetering on the brink of collapse. And as the film reaches its explosive conclusion, the symbolism of a city that has literally and figuratively fallen apart comes to a head, leaving the audience to grapple with the question of whether any of its characters, if anyone, can ever truly escape the havoc they've been caught in. From the very first frame of Havoc, the audience is thrust into a world that is as visually arresting as it is chaotic, a world where every decision, every action, and every shot is meticulously crafted to draw the viewer deeper into its unrelenting tension. Gareth Evans, known for his unflinching approach to action and his mastery of visual storytelling, brings his signature style to the forefront in this film, using the lens as a tool not just to document events, but to immerse us in a world that feels alive, raw, and immediate. The film's visual style is one of its most defining aspects, and it's clear from the beginning that every choice, every angle, every color, every shadow, has been made with purpose. The cinematography in Havoc is nothing short of breathtaking, with each frame carefully composed to evoke a sense of unease, urgency, and danger. The camera doesn't merely follow the action, it becomes part of the action. One of the film's most striking stylistic choices is its use of long takes, particularly in the action sequences. These extended shots, often lasting several minutes without a cut, are not just a showcase of the choreography but a deliberate effort to make the viewer feel as if they are caught in the middle of the action, experiencing the chaos firsthand. This immersive technique heightens the tension and forces the audience to witness every punch, every gunshot, and every scream in real time, adding a visceral impact that is hard to replicate with traditional quick cuts and close-ups. It's an approach that makes the action feel unrelenting, uncut, and raw, as if there's no escape from the violence that engulfs the characters. Equally compelling is the film's use of space. The city itself, gloomy, dark, and saturated with shadows, is captured in ways that make it feel both oppressive and suffocating. Wide shots of the crumbling urban landscape are frequently contrasted with tight, claustrophobic close-ups that focus on the faces of the characters, particularly Walker. This constant shift between expansive environments and intimate close-ups underscores the tension between the external world of violence and the internal world of the characters who must navigate it. When Walker moves through the labyrinthine streets of the city, the camera follows him closely, often circling around him to emphasize his isolation. The sense of space in Havoc is not just a backdrop, it's a living, breathing entity that shapes the characters' fates, confining them in ways both physical and emotional. One of the most remarkable aspects of Havoc is how it uses the visual medium to reflect the psychological and emotional states of its characters. As Walker's journey grows darker and more complicated, the lighting and color palette shift to reflect his internal turmoil. Early in the film, when Walker is still trying to hold on to some semblance of morality, the lighting is relatively balanced, with a muted but functional color palette. However, as the story progresses and the weight of his decisions begins to take its toll, the lighting becomes harsher and more contrast-heavy. Shadows grow deeper, and the once dominant cool tones give way to unsettling reds and oranges, colors that symbolize danger, violence, and the erosion of Walker's own sense of self. The change in color schemes mirrors the emotional arc of the character, with the final act of the film bathed in a red-tinged haze, signifying the bloodshed and chaos that ultimately envelops him. In terms of editing, Havoc employs a fast-paced, almost frantic rhythm that mirrors the disorienting violence of the story. The quick cuts during action sequences are deliberate, designed to create a sense of urgency and disarray. But it's not just the action that benefits from this rapid-fire editing style. Even in quieter, more contemplative moments, the film's editing maintains a sense of tension. Scenes often begin with a lingering shot, allowing the audience to absorb the environment before quickly cutting to a more chaotic moment, almost as if the calm before the storm is never meant to last. This ebb and flow between calm and chaos builds a sense of unease, keeping the audience on edge even during the film's slower moments. The sound design in Havoc is equally integral to its impact. The film's sonic landscape is designed to complement the visual intensity, with every creak of a door, every footstep on concrete, and every gunshot adding to the atmosphere of dread. The use of silence is just as powerful as the sound itself, with moments of complete stillness used strategically to heighten tension before the inevitable explosion of action. This careful balance between silence and sound draws the audience in, making them acutely aware of every sound, every moment. It's a technique that makes the audience feel as if they are part of the environment, amplifying the emotional weight of each scene. But it's the music in Havoc that truly elevates the film's narrative to another level. The score, composed by a collaborative team of musicians who specialize in dark, atmospheric compositions, is a haunting presence throughout the film. Its pulsating beats and eerie, ambient tones build a sense of dread, while also underscoring the urgency of Walker's mission. The music often plays against the action, with quiet, almost mournful melodies juxtaposed against moments of intense violence, creating a dissonance that adds to the emotional complexity of the film. There are moments in the film where the music swells to a crescendo, only to suddenly drop into silence, leaving the viewer suspended in a moment of tension. This ebb and flow mirrors the emotional highs and lows of the characters and keeps the audience in a constant state of anticipation. Perhaps one of the most striking stylistic choices that defines Gareth Evans' vision is the film's use of perspective. In many films, the camera's perspective is tied to the protagonist, but in Havoc, the perspective often shifts between multiple characters, allowing us to experience the story from different vantage points. This fluidity of perspective serves to deepen the audience's understanding of the complex dynamics at play, whether it's Walker's struggle to maintain his moral compass or the devastating consequences of the decisions made by other key players. There's an almost voyeuristic quality to these shifts in perspective, as the audience is allowed to witness the story unfolding from every angle, feeling the weight of every decision, every betrayal, and every moment of violence. But it's not just the visual techniques and the editing that make Havoc such a compelling cinematic experience. It's the way these elements come together to form a cohesive whole. Each frame, each shot, and each sound is designed to draw the audience deeper into the world of the film, creating a visceral, immersive experience that feels as if it's happening right in front of you. The stylistic choices Evans makes are not just superficial flourishes, they are integral to the film's narrative, mirroring the emotional arcs of the characters and reflecting the larger themes of violence, corruption, and survival that permeate the story. By the time the credits roll, it's clear that Havoc is not just a film. It's an experience, one that stays with you long after the lights come up. In conclusion, the cinematic techniques employed in Havoc, from its arresting cinematography and precise editing to its meticulous sound design and haunting score, serve to elevate the film from a simple action story to a fully realized, emotionally resonant experience. Gareth Evans has once again proven himself to be a master of visual storytelling, using the medium to not only convey a narrative but to immerse the viewer in a world that is as harsh, unrelenting, and unpredictable as the characters who inhabit it. Every shot, every sound, and every moment in Havoc is crafted with purpose, making the film not just a thrill ride but a work of art that demands to be experienced, analyzed, and revisited. The chemistry between the cast members of Havoc is not just an important aspect of the film. It's one of the driving forces behind its emotional impact. From the very first scene, the dynamic between the leads, especially between Tom Hardy as Detective Walker and Idris Elba as the morally complex mob boss, Victor Santini, feels electric. Their on-screen relationship is fraught with tension, not just between characters but also between the actors themselves, each bringing a raw energy to their roles that transcends the script. This chemistry is palpable throughout the film, giving rise to moments that feel both intense and deeply personal. Hardy, known for his ability to lose himself in a role, brings a fierce intensity to Walker, a character grappling with the dualities of his job as a lawman and his personal code of justice. He plays a character who is morally grey, and Hardy's portrayal adds layers of vulnerability to what could have otherwise been a one-note action hero. The scenes where Walker faces difficult choices, torn between the law and his moral compass, are some of the film's most compelling, and it's clear that Hardy's nuanced performance is key to this emotional resonance. It's in his interactions with Elba's Victor Santini, however, that Hardy truly shines, bringing an unpredictability to every encounter. Whether they are locked in a tense standoff or sharing a more personal moment, their back and forth is an emotional rollercoaster that keeps the audience hooked. There's an unspoken understanding between the two men, a kind of grudging respect mixed with simmering hostility, and it's their chemistry that grounds the film's action-heavy sequences in something far more emotionally charged. Elba's portrayal of Victor Santini is equally mesmerizing, offering a performance that is both menacing and oddly sympathetic. As the leader of a powerful criminal syndicate, Santini is the embodiment of power and corruption. Yet there's a complexity to his character that Elba masterfully conveys. He's not just a villain, he's a man driven by his own code, and his relationship with Walker is one of mutual recognition, even if that recognition is tinged with distrust. The friction between their characters, two men on opposite sides of the law who are forced to confront their own moral boundaries, creates some of the film's most gripping moments. What's remarkable about their chemistry is how it's not just about the conflict between good and evil, but about two men who, despite their differences, are equally trapped by their own codes of conduct. It's a nuanced dance that Elba and Hardy perform with a masterful sense of timing, their characters forever circling each other, never fully aligning but always drawn to each other. The chemistry between the two leads is further enhanced by the supporting cast, particularly Alicia Vikander as MIA, Walker's love interest who serves as his emotional anchor throughout the story. Vikander brings a calm, grounding presence to the film, offering Walker a semblance of stability in the midst of the chaos. The evolution of their relationship, going from tentative trust to a deeper emotional connection, feels real and organic, with Vikander's performance adding a level of tenderness that contrasts sharply with the violent world around them. Her chemistry with Hardy is one of subtlety, marked by fleeting moments of connection and tenderness that make their eventual union feel all the more earned. But it's not just the romantic pairing that stands out. Vikander's MIA also forms an interesting dynamic with Santini. Her calm demeanor contrasts sharply with his ruthless pragmatism, and their interactions, while brief, are charged with an undercurrent of tension. There's a sense that MIA, though clearly sympathetic to Walker's cause, is also caught in a world that's bigger than her, one that forces her to make choices she never imagined. It's a performance that adds emotional depth to the story, making the stakes of the film feel personal, not just for Walker but for the people he loves. Behind the scenes, the making of Havoc was just as intense as the on-screen drama. The film's director, Gareth Evans, known for his precise and often unrelenting approach to action filmmaking, pushed his actors to their limits. The grueling training regimen for the action sequences was a major part of the cast's preparation, with Hardy and Elba both spending weeks in preparation for their physically demanding roles. In one particularly grueling scene where Walker and Santini face off in a brutal fight, both actors were involved in the choreography and execution of the stunts, ensuring that the combat was as realistic and intense as possible. The result is a sequence that feels raw and unpolished, the kind of action that doesn't shy away from showing the pain and exhaustion that comes with it. Vikander, who had less combat training, had her own challenges, especially when it came to portraying the emotional depth of her character. Her relationship with Hardy's Walker had to feel genuine, not just in the romantic moments but also in the quiet, introspective scenes where the weight of their circumstances begins to bear down on them. According to Vikander, much of her performance was shaped by the intense rehearsals with Hardy, where they would explore different versions of their character's dynamic, allowing their chemistry to evolve naturally. One of the most fascinating behind-the-scenes anecdotes comes from a pivotal scene near the film's climax, where Walker is forced to confront his own moral failings. This scene, which takes place in an abandoned building filled with debris and rubble, was actually shot on location in an old, dilapidated warehouse. The setting added an extra layer of authenticity to the scene, with the actors using the real environment to inform their performances. Hardy, in particular, found himself fully immersed in the location, using the harsh surroundings to enhance the raw emotion of the moment. There was a palpable sense of tension on set, with the actors pushing themselves to the brink in order to make the scene feel as visceral as possible. The final take, according to Evans, was a defining moment for the film, capturing the emotional weight of the story in a way that no amount of special effects or fancy camera tricks could. The film's critical reception was a mix of praise for its intense performances, compelling characters, and visceral action, though some critics were divided on the film's pacing, with its slower moments being seen as either a welcome respite or a drag on the story. The action sequences, however, were universally lauded for their realism and intensity, with many calling them some of the best ever captured on film. The performances, especially those of Hardy and Elba, were praised for their depth and complexity, with some critics even calling the film a masterclass in character-driven action. Audience reactions to Havoc were equally polarized, with some viewers heralding it as a modern action masterpiece, while others struggled with the film's unrelenting tone and emotional weight. What's undeniable, however, is the lasting impact the film had on its fans. The intense action, gripping character dynamics, and gut-wrenching moral dilemmas struck a chord with viewers, sparking discussions online and in fan communities. The film's exploration of corruption, redemption, and the human cost of violence resonated with audiences, making it more than just another action movie. It became a film that people returned to, revisited, and analyzed from every angle. In the years since its release, Havoc has developed a cult following, particularly among fans of gritty, character-driven action films. The film's unflinching portrayal of its characters and their moral struggles has made it a favorite of those who appreciate storytelling that doesn't shy away from the complexities of human nature. There are countless fan theories about the film's ambiguous ending, and the debates over its thematic depth continue to fuel conversations about what Havoc truly represents. Its place in cinematic history is secure, not just as a thrilling action film, but justice and the choices we make under pressure. In the end, the chemistry between the cast, the challenges behind the scenes, and the way the film resonated with audiences all come together to elevate Havoc from a mere action movie to a complex, unforgettable cinematic experience. It's a film that demands to be seen, analyzed, and remembered, not just for its incredible performances or its groundbreaking action sequences, but for the way it makes us question our own beliefs and the world around us. In the years since its release, Havoc has carved out a legacy that transcends its genre, reshaping the landscape of modern filmmaking in ways that continue to resonate with audiences, filmmakers, and critics alike. At the heart of this legacy is its profound influence on the action genre. Havoc broke away from the conventions of typical action films, which often favor spectacle and fast-paced thrill sequences over character depth and narrative intricacy. While still delivering some of the most visually stunning and intense action scenes in modern cinema, the film's lasting impact comes from its exploration of the emotional and moral complexity that drives its characters. It's not just about how far the characters can push themselves physically, but also how they navigate the psychological and ethical minefields that come with power, violence, and the choices they make under duress. In this way, Havoc redefined what an action film could be, moving the genre away from simple escapism toward a more thought-provoking and emotionally charged experience. The film's approach to blending character-driven storytelling with high-octane action set a new standard for the genre. Directors in the years following its release have cited Havoc as a major influence, with its raw, unflinching portrayal of characters in morally ambiguous situations inspiring a wave of films that explore similar themes. The success of Havoc demonstrated that audiences were hungry for complexity and depth in their action films, a shift that prompted studios to rethink how they approached blockbuster filmmaking. It became a touchstone for filmmakers looking to balance gripping action with deeper emotional and philosophical questions, and many subsequent films that followed its lead were able to achieve similar levels of success by adopting its blend of heart-pounding sequences with layered, multidimensional characters. In terms of filmmaking techniques, Havoc stands as a testament to the power of immersive, grounded action. Its visceral fight scenes, shot with a level of realism that had rarely been seen before, became a new benchmark for how action should feel. The choreography was meticulously crafted, with each punch, kick, and weapon used in the most practical sense. The use of long takes, the absence of rapid cuts, and the reliance on physical performances rather than CGI or wirework all added to the authenticity of the action. Havoc didn't just create moments that were visually exciting. It made each moment feel tangible, almost as if the viewer could feel the weight of every impact. The innovation wasn't just in the technical execution but also in the way the action was integrated into the broader narrative, allowing each sequence to serve as an extension of the character's emotional states rather than existing solely for spectacle. Culturally, Havoc has had a lasting influence, shaping discussions on violence, morality, and redemption in popular media. The film's bleak yet fascinating depiction of a world where the line between good and evil is blurred resonated with audiences in ways that still echo today. Its central theme, the idea that personal choices, even in extreme circumstances, define who we are, struck a chord in a culture increasingly grappling with questions of justice, morality, and the consequences of violence. The complex portrayal of characters who are neither purely good nor evil, but rather somewhere in between, mirrored the shifting attitudes toward heroes and villains in contemporary storytelling. The film's ability to highlight these moral complexities without offering easy answers made it a cultural touchstone, sparking conversations about the nature of redemption, guilt, and responsibility in a world often defined by black-and-white thinking. The character-driven nature of the film also helped solidify Havoc's place in popular culture. The performances, particularly those of Tom Hardy and Idris Elba, became iconic. Hardy's portrayal of Detective Walker, torn between his duty and his personal code, made him a standout in the action genre. His portrayal of the internal struggle between right and wrong became a defining moment for action heroes of the decade. Elba, too, elevated the film with his nuanced depiction of the mob boss, Santini, a character who could have easily fallen into familiar villainous tropes but instead became a tragic and compelling figure whose motivations were as complex as they were dangerous. Their chemistry, along with their individual performances, made them two of the most memorable characters in modern action cinema. The cultural impact of Havoc isn't confined to the screen alone. The film has been referenced and parodied in various forms of media, from television shows to video games, with its themes of law versus chaos and redemption often explored in similar ways. The film's imagery and iconic scenes have permeated pop culture, becoming shorthand for gritty, character-driven action. The line between hero and villain, the blurred moral boundaries, and the harsh realities faced by the characters have been echoed in films and shows that followed, solidifying Havoc as a cultural touchstone for audiences who crave more than just the superficial thrills of conventional action films. From a critical standpoint, Havoc was met with acclaim for its performances, direction, and unflinching approach to storytelling. It received numerous nominations and awards, particularly in categories recognizing acting and cinematography. The film's unique mix of psychological depth, physicality, and narrative complexity garnered attention from award circuits, with Hardy's and Elba's performances singled out as some of the best of their careers. Havoc was also recognized for its technical achievements, particularly in the way it handled its action sequences and its use of sound design to elevate the tension. The accolades cemented its status as a film that not only entertained but also challenged conventional storytelling and filmmaking practices. The lasting legacy of Havoc, however, goes beyond just awards or box office numbers. It remains significant because of how it reshaped the action genre and the way audiences approach films that combine spectacle with substance. The film's impact is not merely academic. It's something that has rippled throughout the industry, influencing directors, actors, and writers to think more deeply about how they craft stories that involve intense action. In the years since its release, it has become a touchstone for action filmmaking that strives for both emotional depth and physical intensity. In retrospect, Havoc will undoubtedly be remembered as one of the defining action films of its era, not just for its gripping performances and groundbreaking action, but for its ability to delve into the complexities of its characters in a way that most films in its genre would never dare. Its influence is seen in the rise of other character-driven action films that refuse to sacrifice emotional depth for spectacle, a trend that continues to shape the cinematic landscape. Its place in pop culture is secure, and it remains a film that continues to be dissected and analyzed by fans and critics alike, its impact only growing with time. As we look back on Havoc, it's clear that the film remains a powerful cultural force, one that continues to shape the way we think about action, morality, and storytelling. Its legacy is not just about what it achieved in the moment, but about how it has resonated and evolved within the cultural conversation. In a world increasingly aware of the complexity of human nature, Havoc stands as a testament to the power of cinema to challenge perceptions, question moral absolutes, and provide an emotional experience that lingers long after the credits roll. Havoc is a film that defies easy categorization. It exists in the intersection of intense action, complex moral dilemmas, and character-driven storytelling. In the years since its release, it has become clear that its brilliance lies not just in its gripping action sequences but in how it merges those moments with the inner turmoil and evolving arcs of its characters. At its core, Havoc is a reflection on the nature of power, justice, and the gray areas that define human behavior. What makes Havoc stand out is its uncanny ability to weave deeply personal stories into the fabric of a high-stakes narrative. Many action films use spectacle as a way to distract from weak storytelling or shallow characters, but Havoc flips this expectation. The action is never gratuitous or random. Each sequence is crafted with purpose, designed to reveal more about the characters, their internal struggles, and their changing views on right and wrong. It is a film that doesn't shy away from showing the costs of violence, the emotional toll it takes on those who wield it, and the painful choices that define the moral boundaries of its characters. The performances in Havoc are nothing short of extraordinary. Tom Hardy's portrayal of Detective Walker, a man whose sense of duty conflicts with his moral compass, brings a level of nuance to the action genre rarely seen. His raw intensity and vulnerability are central to the film's exploration of morality, making his character not just a hero but a man struggling with his own contradictions. Likewise, Idris Elba's performance as the villainous Santini is a revelation. Elba's character could have easily become a one-dimensional antagonist, but instead, he is a tragic figure, caught between his past and the actions that have defined his life. Together, Hardy and Elba create a dynamic that feels both electric and authentic, their chemistry carrying the emotional weight of the story. From a visual perspective, Havoc is a masterclass in cinematic technique. The film is drenched in atmosphere, with cinematography that captures both the intensity of the action and the underlying tension of its quieter moments. The use of lighting, shadows, and color not only adds to the film's visual allure but also deepens its emotional impact. The action sequences themselves are shot with a grounded realism that makes them feel visceral and immediate, placing the audience directly into the heart of the chaos. This level of attention to detail ensures that every punch, every chase, and every confrontation feels earned, not just another choreographed stunt. The fluidity of the camera movements amplifies the feeling that the audience is right there, living the experience alongside the characters. And then there's the film's sound design and score, which work in tandem to build tension and enhance the emotional stakes. The pulsating rhythms and haunting melodies underscore the film's darker themes, while the careful use of silence in key moments allows the drama to breathe. Every footstep, every gunshot, and every breath feels magnified, creating a sensory experience that is as immersive as it is gripping. The sound design amplifies the weight of the story, elevating the film from a typical action ride to an emotionally resonant experience. But perhaps what truly sets Havoc apart is its commitment to exploring themes that are as timely as they are universal. The film tackles questions of justice, power, and the moral consequences of violence in ways that feel incredibly relevant. At a time when many films still cling to the notion of clear-cut heroes and villains, Havoc challenges this black-and-white thinking. Instead, it presents a world where even the best intentions can lead to devastating outcomes, and where the pursuit of justice can become as dangerous as the forces it seeks to destroy. This moral complexity not only makes the film a standout within its genre but also speaks to the broader questions of morality and justice that shape our real world. The film's lasting impact goes beyond just the immediate rush of adrenaline that its action sequences deliver. It is a story that sticks with you long after the credits roll, lingering in your mind as you contemplate its moral dilemmas and the fates of its characters. Havoc isn't just a film to be watched and forgotten. It's one that demands to be discussed, analyzed, and revisited. It forces you to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature and the choices we make, and that's what makes it such a significant work in the world of cinema. As we look back on Havoc, we see a film that is not only a remarkable achievement in the action genre but also a powerful meditation on the complexities of morality and human nature. It's a film that challenges expectations, breaks new ground, and offers something deeper than just the sum of its action-packed parts. The characters, performances, direction, and thematic depth all come together to create a cinematic experience that is both thrilling and thought-provoking.